Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Tacoma Public Schools study session to order for October 19th, 2023. Deputy General Counsel, would you please call the roll? It's on. It's hot.
It is hot. Okay, thank you. President Von Bright.
Here.
Director or Vice President Strozier.
Here.
Director Keating.
Here.
And Director Leon is excused this evening, and I think Director McElroy should be here shortly, but and Director Leon has shared with us all some thoughts and questions on the topics this evening, so I'm sure everyone's had a chance to look at those and incorporate them into your thinking. All right, if everyone would please join me in the flag salute, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tacoma Public Schools acknowledges that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and historical lands of the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Puyallup Tribe. This acknowledgement serves as a first step in honoring our nearest tribal neighbors and partners who have inhabited this region since time immemorial, and to whom we give thanks for allowing us passage to their lands. We shall intentionally create inclusive and respectful partnerships that honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and socio-political realities. And with that, we will start our study session this evening. We have two agenda items topically on our agenda. The first one is the legislative agenda preview with our government affairs consultant, Charlie Brown, and the second one is a deep dive into Tacoma Flex. So we will start with the study session 4.1 item and turning this over to, I guess I'll turn it over to the superintendent, and he can introduce Mr. Brown and the reasons we're here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Madam President. So just a reminder for folks, at a study session, we don't make any decisions. It is our opportunity for us to gather insights. So each of tonight's topics, we have prepared a short presentation for you where we give you the information, and then we'll be available for a little Q&A. It is with pleasure that I introduce one of our partners, Mr. Charles Brown from Cascade Governmental Affairs. Mr. Brown helps us shape not only what are some priorities, but also helps us shape partnerships within the community and the region on key legislative topics, issues. And then he helps us during the session and outside of the session to help inform people about why these issues are important to us as a local school district, and helps them understand why it may be beneficial for our kids to advocate for these inside the legislative session. So Mr. Brown is going to take us through some topics tonight that Director Keating, myself, the Chief Financial Officer have been working with Mr. Brown on helping shape, and these would be recommendations for you to consider potentially at our next board meeting for a formal action. And before that, Director Keating, is there anything that you would like to give as background context before we cut Charlie loose?
No, I like cutting Charlie loose.
There we go.
I will say, probably for explanation to the public who may not understand Director Keating's role, which is a very significant role here on this board, is she is our current legislative representative, and so she works directly with the public affairs and government affairs team, both contractually as well as our on-staff team, and works with WASDA and others to help frame our role and impact of legislative activities on Tacoma Public Schools and as well at the federal level. So we are very grateful for the time and energy that Director Keating spends every single day to make sure that we are in the know and informed. So thank you. And so, Mr. Brown.
Well, good evening, everybody, and Madam President, members of the board, and everyone. Thank you for inviting me here tonight. I have to say, I was in Washington, D.C. this week, and I had the opportunity to, of course, walk down the mall. And you can't help but be awed by the Lincoln Memorial, the MLK Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial. And what I find with all three of those is that link of education and what education means to our nation and how we get to be where we are by providing an education to everybody. I think the Jefferson Memorial is particularly wonderful because they've got a quote by Thomas Jefferson talking about the importance of education, and then of course with the MLK Memorial. So it really brings home to me just what a pleasure it is and an honor it is to represent you and school districts in the state of Washington down in Olympia. So with that, I'll just walk through the proposed agenda. We did work on this, as has been stated. There's been a couple of different iterations. I think we're on version 3 now. We, as you might recall, break these up into critical issues and priority issues. Critical issues are really things that are Tacoma School District specific and that we really want to put a high priority on. The other priority issues are ones that affect sometimes the education system at large. Interestingly, of course, everything that's on here is just stuff that we know is coming or stuff we know we want to work on. There's always about 150 to 200 bills on education every year, so we're constantly reacting to what other people have ideas on education. Sometimes stuff we can work with, sometimes we hope gets a little bit more consideration over time. The Maritime Skills Center, of course, and congratulations to you, the Tacoma School District, for receiving the letter from OSPI for the designation of a new core skills center. That is a big deal. They haven't issued a new core skills center letter in over a decade. So what you guys are doing here right now, we all know is going to help kids in the long run, but you really did yeoman's work, especially in the face of some challenges down at the agency. So congratulations to you for that. You might recall we received about $8 million in the capital budget last year to help the construction of that facility. We asked for 12 originally. Late in the session, I got a call, said, Charlie, do you think you need all of it right now, or do you think you can, spread this out a little bit? And I said, well, it's my opinion that we can work with you, legislature, to spread that out. I didn't want to leave it off of the agenda because I think we need to go back and ask for the remainder of that floor, particularly in light of the workforce needs and the opportunities for our students that skill center represents. So that's our number one issue there, just to keep that at the forefront. And I don't have to say, legislators all throughout Pierce County are supportive of this proposal. We were able to get the whole Pierce County delegation to sign on to a letter in support of what they call delegation wide issues. So this is a Pierce County wide issue. So I just want to make sure we get back down there and don't let that off. So are there questions on that particular bullet point? I guess
Let's go ahead and go through them all, Charlie, and then give the board members a chance to take notes, and then we'll wrap that up. We have about 20 minutes for this portion tonight and some Q&A for that space. And then I just put a caveat is that I probably should have is the legislative agenda is not designed to be all encompassing for every issue. And as Charlie just mentioned, you'll see in the state legislators, education is a very popular topic. You'll see any given year 150 plus bills. And that's why it's so important that we have Charlie as a partner with us to be able to help filter, respond, sometimes to not react because they don't need to be a reaction to that. And so as you're considering tonight, think of that these are not the only topics that we will be discussing in the legislative session, but these are important for us to then signal to legislators. These are important topics for the Tacoma Public Schools. Please keep these at the top of your mind and know that we're here to partner with you.
So the next issue is the school funding model, prototypical school funding model. The legislature has a formula where they fund school districts on a per student basis, essentially, and then some other areas. And it does not, or has not at least, kept up with the actual requirements that school districts have for running a basic education program. A lot of the costs that I think are basic education and many others think are basic education are not borne fully by the state, so we're asking the state to step up and fund those. There are some efforts at the state level to look at classified and paraeducator funding levels, and we think that's appropriate. We want to make sure that that's on the list so that we can have these conversations about increasing the funding from the state for the prototypical school model. Whole child is an issue that is, of course, so important statewide, but to the district as well. We've been lucky to have the legislature really embrace whole child initiatives over the course of time, and we want to make sure that we're working to expand those learning opportunities for our community partners. And you know, a lot of this is your after school programming, some of your before school programming, the other supports for counseling and nursing and some of the other stuff that students need. So continuing to work on those issues is quite important for the district and benefits everyone statewide. Oh, I guess I went the wrong way. I apologize. Sustainability is an issue that certainly is a top of mind issue in the legislature. It's top of mind in the public. There are requirements now of building owners, whether you're public or private, to increase the energy efficiency of your buildings. We're also looking for ways to lower carbon emissions overall. Certainly the climate crisis is upon us, and we need to address that. So this is a relatively new issue area for us, sustainable energy assistance. We believe that there are opportunities for the legislature to assist school districts throughout the state, and particularly ours, to get our larger buildings up to the requirements under state law. So we'll be talking to the legislature about capital budget related issues there. And then on transportation for electric school buses, we believe there's certainly federal money for that. I know that there's discussion about getting some state matching money for that as well. And to the degree that we might be able to garner some of that support from the legislature, maybe partner up with some of our community partners, we might be able to start working on getting electric school buses or lower carbon emitting transportation for the district. So that's on the critical issues list. Issues of high concern, the people transportation, regionalization, board member compensation. We'll just start working through these. People transportation is an issue that I understand legislators are still interested in working on. We've been working on that for a couple of years now. It's more complicated than one would think because there's such the formula, and there's so many differences among school districts. But the bottom line is that if there are going to be revisions in the funding formula, that we make sure that whatever revisions are fully funded by the state. So whether it's compensation or coverage of healthcare benefits, or making sure that our actual costs of running pupil transportation, which is basic education, it's part of the basic education, is fully funded. So another area to look at there. Regionalization is an issue that I think affects the Pierce County area more uniquely than just about anywhere else in the state. We've got school districts with boundaries adjacent to one another, but they receive more or less funding under this regionalization funding formula that was adopted back in 2017. There was an attempt to make some revisions to that last year. It's very expensive, but it's an issue that the legislature simply cannot ignore. When you've got school districts that are just adjacent to one another, and we're all educating the student population of Pierce County as a whole. Pierce County as a whole should be given due consideration for equal compensation district to district. So we keep that on. That's certainly an issue, not just for us, but for all of our school district partners in Pierce County. And the South Sound, frankly, I mean, there are some districts just right there in King County that are still underfunded as well. Board member compensation is an issue that has come up over the last couple of years in the legislature. Quite frankly, it's an issue that is timely and deserves more consideration by the legislature. The bottom line is that the system has been in place for board member compensation on a per diem basis, but we're asking more and more of our school boards and to run a much more complex educational system, and we think that the statutory framework around board member compensation should be modified to reflect the challenges that all of you face in delivering education for our students.
Charlie, can I add just one piece to
Sure.
that? So the legislature, I think it was in 2021, had asked the Department of Commerce to do a study on board compensation that took them approximately a year or so to release, and then that study was released. I thought that was, or no, that was this, it was actually 2023, January, that they, so it was the previous, not 21, 22. And so it did this study about school board compensation and what school board members, they surveyed school board members across the state, just to compile a study of what would be a more equitable compensation of that. And so it's a very, it's a pretty robust study and pretty informative, and then also acknowledges that there is the board member role, and then there are 3 additional elected roles within a school board. And so making those, just like considerations of those responsibilities and duties, were also included in the study.
Okay. And the legislative proposals have allowed for flexibility at each of the district levels. It's not saying this has to be done this way. So each district, according to maybe size or the complexities of issues they're dealing with, can adjust and set compensation. The employee benefits is an issue that is kind of a ongoing issue. I'm going to say a little bit like the regionalization and prototypical school model. In 2017, the legislature had adopted the McCleary fixes. Part of that, there was some school employee benefits provisions in there. The legislature doesn't fully cover the actual costs of school employee benefits. There's a delta between what was being paid to the school districts and what the school employee benefits actually cost, and therefore the district has to make it up somewhere else without state money, even though it's a state mandate. What we're asking for is the state to step up to the plate and cover the actual costs that it deems are benefits that have to be paid to all of our employees. And we're not arguing with the benefits. What we're arguing with is the fact that the state doesn't fully cover those costs. And we think that that's an issue we need to continue to have a conversation about.
We're not even arguing. We're just presenting information that is factually based, that is required by law, so that folks.
From a non-adversarial position.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
Those
doing
were the
great.
clip
You're
notes.
doing
We're having conversations. Community partner support, as you all know, Tacoma takes its community partnerships really seriously. We reached out to our community partners, the city of Tacoma, the county, the metropolitan parks, and others to find out what issues they are working on. We're letting them know what issues we're working on. Historically, we've had a really great working relationship with them. JMAC, as President Bonbright knows, is really a powerful organization, the Joint Municipal
Action.
Action Committee, yeah. And so we received some comments back, and the city of Tacoma is still under a levy lid that was adopted any number of years ago. And I believe that from the city's perspective, lifting that levy lid, given the rates of inflation and other cost factors that the city, incurs, would make Tacoma a much more livable city. If we have a more livable city, good place to live and work, then we're going to have students that are ready to learn. So working with the city on their agenda on that is on our list. Metropolitan Parks, they've run into some issues. Recently, we partnered with them several years ago to get the state agencies responsible for licensing childcare to make it more streamlined to license a number of buildings all at one time, so we can run operations at several different buildings. We're finding that there are still some statutory or administrative rules that are making it a challenge to do that, so we want to work with them to modify those. And then the last two issues are somewhat related. Simple majority for school bonds. There's more and more discussion about simple majority in the wake of the state Supreme Court's decision against the Wahkiakum School District that suggests that the legislature does have a duty to work to allow school districts more of an opportunity for getting schools rebuilt. The Wahkiakum case really highlighted the fact that you've got a 50-plus-year-old building and you're trying to educate students in there, and the state's system for school construction is holding back that opportunity for students to, or the community to be able to build and remodel schools. So trying to move that current 60% supermajority back to a simple majority, or perhaps even just 55%, just lowering that threshold a little bit, still would require more than a simple majority, but at 55%, at least there's more opportunity for community to be able to support their school districts. And then the final issue would be the school construction formula modifications. Again, the Wahkiakum decision pointed out or highlighted the need for additional funding from the state. Their funding formula is actually only about 25% of the actual cost of building a facility these days. I think they offer about $200, give or take, for per square foot for the construction of a facility, and anybody who's built anything lately knows that those numbers are quite a bit higher in the $800 type range. So there's effort by the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction to modify the school construction formula on their own. My understanding, they're in discussions about issuing some new WAC rules on that, and I think it's going to give us an opportunity then to have a very serious discussion about this issue in the legislature this 2024 session. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. It was clear and concise, and I know we all had a chance to look at it ahead of time. So I'll turn it over and see if my colleagues have any questions or comments on any of the specifics that's currently on the agenda.
No, I feel like it's really robust, and as Superintendent Garcia pointed out at the beginning, I know these aren't the only things that you'll be following. I know there's a lot on your plate, and there's a lot coming up in this next ledge session, so thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Vice President Strozier, you have any comments or questions? Director Petey?
I would just say, I think we were just reflecting right before the study session, it feels like our legislative priorities or agendas over the last several years have really focused on COVID and COVID recovery. And so this feels Like it just has sort of a different feel to it. Not that any of that other work was different. It just is allowing us to focus on things that aren't specifically related to the pandemic and recovery. And so that was just something that is notable in this particular proposed agenda.
Refreshing, isn't it?
A lot, very much so.
And I'd like to just add that I was struck by how many of these items really align with our board goals that we just passed in September around environmental stewardship, in looking at whole child support, just a lot of the same themes, which was also refreshing and nice to see that we as a board have already aligned around these issues. So that was great. I did want to make one further comment in addition to what Director Keating was saying about the board member compensation piece, and that is that the recommendations of this commission that was put together, which was an independent commission that the legislature, as she mentioned, had asked for, was pretty insistent that a change was recommended. They recommended highly, and talking about how the school board members are the only elected officials that are so poorly compensated, that other elected officials at every level, people you don't even think about, like the utility boards, for example, make $19,000 a year, and we make $4,800. So I think they were saying that we have this organization here in Tacoma is a $1 billion budget when you throw in the bond measures. And so it's a big budget, it's a big responsibility. It's 30,000 students, it's 5,000 employees, it's a big deal. And we just want to make sure that we can empower our community to be well represented by people who aren't worried about making taking that time off work and maybe having to take vacation days. So it's not an unreasonable ask, and we're not the only district, of course, that's grappling with that. But just wanted to say that I hope that we can encourage the legislature to actually review and act upon the recommendations that came from the group they asked to put together. So we're really just saying this was a thoughtful year-long process, and they came up with some very legitimate and great suggestions on how to get from where we are now to where they think we should be. So I will just leave that.
And I just would add one other piece to that. So for WASDA, this is also a priority that is supported by WASDA as well. School board compensation in terms of an equity perspective and priority of recruiting and retaining quality school board candidates, and also around school board members who have children and can't afford to pay for childcare in order to do the work that they're actually elected to do. So it's more than just, like, it's a complicated issue that I would say that I know I've been a part of, and President Bombright and I from around state colleagues for I think the 4 years we've been on the board. So this has been an ongoing issue that I know didn't start when we joined, but I appreciate that there is the consideration to advocate for this, because it's not just about the 5 of us on this board. It's much bigger than that.
Right.
So in that same spirit, just to recap, what you'll find with the items that are listed as issues of high concern those are also shared with other partner school districts, other agencies in there. And so you'll see some commonalities amongst the region that are important for us. And that is one that is not just to you folks alone. It's a regional piece. And I'd be remiss with not saying I want to thank our local delegation. They have put a lot of time and effort in supporting local Pierce County schools, and it's not lost on us. These topics, obviously, they're a state legislature. They can do so much, but our delegation has really leaned in over the last few years to support Tacoma, support Pierce County, and making sure that they use a shared voice in those issues. And so if you get a chance, you know how complex it is to be an elected official. We try to give them some priorities to say we agree that these are areas to focus, but they also hear from multiple constituencies and constituents and pull them in different directions. So If there's nothing else for Mr. Brown, I'd like to thank him publicly for all he does. We work with Charlie throughout the whole year. We meet. The session this is not an episodic moment. So Charlie is with us all year long, even throughout the summer, where there's a lot of work that happens outside of the legislative session by legislators and those offices, as well as by schools in there. And so I want to thank Charlie and his team. They do an amazing job. They are very vested in the interest of Tacoma Public School students, and that's not lost on us. So thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming this evening and for all the work you do all year, and let the fun begin. It's almost time again. I know you feel like it was just yesterday when you were still there walking the halls, but we appreciate that. And also for the, as one of the things the superintendent said that I think is so very true is that our Pierce County and especially our local Tacoma legislative constituents group is, the legislators who represent us in the Senate and in the House are laser focused on doing the right thing for kids. I have been more than impressed with all of our area
Every
reps
one of them.
and their commitment, and your relationship with them is incredibly helpful. So thank you.
If board members have any suggestions for the agenda, if you could send them to Director Keating and myself, so that we would be able to chance to process them, vet them with Charlie before, ideally before next Tuesday. So by close of business on Monday, that would give us some time to process any revisions or decide if we needed to table the conversation for further. And otherwise, be prepared if there are no suggestions or revisions that we would probably most likely bring this to you next Thursday for your consideration of adoption. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Charlie.
And again, thank
Thank
you,
you all.
Director Keating as well for your
Yeah.
hard work on all this, and Superintendent as well. All right, thanks so much. All right, moving on to the second item on the agenda tonight, and we have a great team with us from Team Tacoma here. That's Tacoma Flex, so 4.2, and I'm going to turn it back over to the superintendent who can introduce this topic.
Thank you, Madam President. So just a reminder for the public and yourselves is you every year spend a lot of time shaping board goals. And you had a very robust discussion. Forgive me if I don't have the exact dates, both in August on what some of those goals could be for this year, as well as in the month of September. And then you had a robust discussion on some priorities, and then also recognized there were certain topics that may have not been formulated into a specific goal. Maybe it wasn't the right time to do that goal. Maybe the goal wasn't shaped in a manner that you felt like you can't do it all at once. But you did recognize that there were some other topics that you would like to dive deeper in. And so one of those topics is Tacoma Flex. And we invited, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Krulos to introduce his team, to give you an update on what is Tacoma Flex, what are the numbers. We can walk through those things. There is, once again, no action here. This is to give you a chance to ask questions. And with that said, we also know that you spend a lot of time behind the scenes studying, talking, participating, seeing it for yourself. Some of you may even know people that have been a part of it. And so we also know that this is not a first conversation for you at the board level. So with that, Mr. Koulos, would you be so kind to introduce your team in the manner that you would like and take us through your overview of Tacoma Flex?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, us. So Adam Koulos, Director of Innovative Learning and Career Tech Ed, joined tonight by Principal Sean Martin, Assistant Principal, Secondary Principal, Mr. Paul Elliott, and our K-5 or Elementary Tacoma Online Assistant Principal, Ruth Schlotman. And it's fun. The Tacoma Online journey story, and that's what it'll be tonight, and we'll unpack some different granular details, but also tell you some pretty exciting stories. You'll see throughout the presentation as we get going, you'll see actual Tacoma kids in that. Bigger part of a campaign that we're running around iFlex. And so every one of those students is a Tacoma student that we asked to share their story. So we'll go granular and give you some numbers and some data and kind of where we're at and where we're going, but also highlight some kids, because that's what we're in it for. So, in terms of our why, it's here, and I know that you've had the presentation, but I think we'll spend a little time really kind of just unpacking this briefly. I think in terms of I'm very fortunate in terms of my role and in terms of getting to work with lots of very passionate folks to serve kids and community in all different endeavors. And I think it's under this larger umbrella of innovations. What can we do that's new? What can we bring to our district that's new to serve and empower choice for every single kid? And I'll probably mention multiple times in this opportunity, as well as the team as we go on, and do with pretty much every project that we have. And that there's not a one size fits all for any single kid. And so everything we design is personalized around each kid, with full knowing that the more opportunities that we can provide for all of our students, the higher quality success that we can guarantee on that backside. So intentionally, there's a couple things that are highlighted from a color standpoint. With passion, innovation, and commitment to each student's personalized journey. It's a sticking point for us. We're hosting a convening that we were at today. It was super exciting. Kicked off with touring 5 of our different high school sites and really celebrating kids. And on those tours, my phone's getting blown up, and it has correlation to Flex because I think it's this exciting opportunity. We're seeing youth empowered, Tacoma youth empowered, to talk about what they're creating, where they're going, and what they're doing. And Flex is another vehicle, or has become another vehicle in this arsenal of opportunity for kids that is personalized to each and every one of them for a variety of reasons. And so we always emphasize that. And then our consistent go-to tagline from even year 0, Mr. Elliott deems our pandemic launch of Tacoma Online, where we were serving over 5,000 kids, as year 0, and it's fair. But I think what's exciting in that year 0 is where a lot of these ideas and these visions were born with an urgency and an aggressive acceleration of not saying we're going to do this in 10 years or we're going to do this in 5 years. We're going to go because kids deserve it. Anyone, anytime, anywhere learning, and we stay true to that model in everything we do.
So maybe just in that pause when we talk about Flex, anytime, anywhere. And if you're going to get there, I apologize.
No, I will.
So I'll just apologize.
Please.
I'm sorry, Adam.
No.
For those that are not at home, not understanding, what are we talking about? So Tacoma Flex is an opportunity for a student and their family to make a choice. They can take an online class, and we'll let the team describe that, but in short, in the morning or the afternoon, because they recognize that they need flexibility in their schedule. That's what was born out of this. There's still the required number of graduation requirements to hit for a high school student specifically. We want students to be full-time enrolled, but we recognize that doesn't mean that learning has to happen in a traditional brick and mortar under the same schedule. And so a number of years ago, you folks charged us in your journey to create opportunities for families to have a choice. For families to have a choice. You operationalize that, you charge the team to operationalize that. And so this is really about student choice. And so when Adam says anyone, anytime, anywhere, you'll see there will be examples of where it's hitting different grade levels. But a student could, in theory, be in another state during first period. Might be difficult for the transportation we want them there.
From Idaho,
right? Really, in the car, maybe that in that space, or after school, because maybe they want more flexibility because they have to work. There's some personal choices in that. Maybe they have decided that for sleep patterns, this helps their children, and they make those decisions with that. And so that's the personalization, anytime, anyone, anywhere. It's not to say that you have to specifically log in at a set time. Fair?
100%.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And it's this 24/7 access. And it truly is. And every time we try to come up with a hypothetical, and we'll get into kind of student profile because it doesn't exist. But every time we come up with this envisioned hypothetical, our kids, our actual students engaged, exceed that and blow it out of the water. And that truly is this condensed definition of anyone, anytime, anywhere. They literally have access to their content, to their learning experience at any minute of any given day, with structures around access to the folks and the humans, and the talented Tacoma teachers that are on the other side of that class. And so we'll dive a little deeper into it as we kind of continue on. This, in terms of even the branding and the logo of it, it's powered by Tacoma Online. It's powered by our Tacoma teachers that have, at this point, collaboratively customized every single class that we offer, every single student, whether it's a Flex course, whether it's a Tacoma Online course. And so in terms of this evolution of powered by Tacoma Online, there's sort of this kind of what was, and these almost stack, right? So we didn't abandon empathy and personalization after year 0. They just stack, and it continues to expand and get deeper and deeper in terms of our understanding and the talent pool of our staff to truly continue to personalize students at an even higher level. So in terms of that first year, it really was. It was around embracing a global pandemic and being everything we could for students and families. And it was this beautiful rally cry that was sort of born of necessity and evolved through possibility. Like, we love little phrases like that because they're so real in terms of tangible actions as this program has evolved. 21-22, when we shifted gears and ultimately started transitioning students back into in-person scenarios, we remain very strong in terms of families that weren't ready to go back or had found a lane that didn't exist prior or that they hadn't been introduced to prior, and found academic success and ultimately stayed with us full time. So we transitioned into last year. We started to surface through countless angles of student voice, and family voice has always been a driver for us, and we accomplish it through a few different evolving practices. One of which is our PACE program, which is heavily connected into our Tacoma Online programming, and then we have an iteration of it in terms of check and connect with caring adult in our Flex programming. But it's always this consistent opportunity to essentially collect student voice, qualitative and quantitative data. So we use Imagine Edgenuity as our platform in terms of our base platform and our content, and our teachers have gone through and customized that. Edgenuity provides us with some really valuable resources in terms of progress monitoring. In terms of the academic side, it'll tell me how many minutes a student was engaged. It'll tell me if they were idle during that time. It'll tell me how many assignments they submitted. It'll even tell me what time they logged in and what time they logged off in any given 24-hour period. Mr. Elliott's extremely talented on the data side, and we pursue lots of different stories that are not student driven and are given to us in terms of that data to be able to identify what are our peak hours, when are our kids logging in, and so that's all part of this sort of packaged evolution. And last year, specific to Flex, and they are in many ways very, very tightly related. However, Flex has some differences, and so in terms of Flex, it is access. Last year, we launched a pilot with our high schools. It was access to 1 or 2 periods at the beginning of their day, or 1 or 2 periods at the conclusion of their day. Students exit campus. They do not stay on campus during that time. So it was either a late arrival or an early dismissal, and had access to those courses that they selected in partnership between Tacoma Online and the sending school or the brick and mortar counseling team to make sure that it was appropriate classes and continued their pursuit of graduation. So through that beta process, and we'll get into the actual numbers in a couple slides, we watched noticeable increase from this beta experience that was rolled out at the beginning of a year ago now, between even first and second semester, and then we'll share the data in terms of even this fall with some additional expansion. Before we move on from this, there's a couple other really important pieces to mention. So last year, the TOL holistic team, led by the admin, went through the process with OSPI of becoming an authorized statewide course provider. It's a Herculean lift. And it was something that we saw as an opportunity. In Tacoma Online, approximately 9%, we have a cap of 10% by state law, but approximately 9 or just over 9% of our student population are students that are not, do not reside in Tacoma. They are not enrolled in Tacoma. They come from other districts for a variety of reasons, and engage in our programming. We saw that as an opportunity to serve additional students who may be in a scenario where they attend a district or a high school that doesn't offer something that they're passionate about or that would align with their aspirations in terms of ultimate pursuit of graduation and beyond, with some of our offerings. And we saw this as a potential opportunity to continue to serve youth not only in Tacoma with expanded offerings, but students outside of our district. So the state authorization was a pretty substantial step in terms of our expansion of the Flex program, of which it was authorized, which is exciting, and also came with our accreditation process, which we are completing this year. And so we're authorized by the state to offer courses outside of Tacoma, while simultaneously pursuing our accreditation over the course of this actual school year. Finally, there's a scale component in terms of this school year, in that we traveled down to middle school and provided access to middle school students. We did it very much similar a year ago with high schools, and that it was somewhat controlled. And so when we get into even deeper into the presentation in terms of granular breakdown by school, you'll see a couple of middle schools with higher enrollment in Flex. Those are controlled pilots that were trying different things in partnership with those admin teams and students at those schools. And then finally, just a quick glimpse into what's next. The 24-25 school year, so in preparation this year, starting as early as right now, we're developing different, not only marketing campaigns for better information, but also creating bridges with districts, once again controlled. We want to continue to deliver a high quality product, but districts throughout South Puget Sound with an opportunity to participate in our programming through interdistrict agreements. I'll get much more granular as we progress, but I wanted to give you that sort of 5-year kind of where we've been and where we're going. So back to the fall. This will be much more cadence in terms of sequencing. So if we go back a year, 9th through 12th, there are a couple of priority areas for us. Collaboration, communication. It's ongoing, right? There's expansive website revisions, not only for TOL or Tacoma Flex, but also for Tacoma Online and any other program that we currently do, because we want to communicate better in terms of families, community, and certainly students. Also internally, and the secondary team and elementary teams, the TOL Holistic has done a really good job of bridging with all of our brick and mortar schools in terms of access and opportunity. When we get a little further on, I'll let them break down even the continuous enrollment component of taking calls as recent as probably today. Certainly yesterday, because I was in the office and heard them engaging in some of them with families that had a need, that we weren't ready to say, oh, sorry, we're past the deadline, because that's not how we operate. And so it's rich, and those are those victories in terms of, and on any given day it could be, or any given week it could be 3 students or it could be 20 students, and that's fulfilling for us in terms of the program and the fact that we've created it and it provided access. The C student profile, we've really worked hard the first 3 years, 0, 1, 2, in terms of developing a profile for an online learner. As I said before, and I warned you, I'd say it again, it is not always the right fit for every kid. However, it's a brilliant fit for some kids, and so we decided that, hey, let's take a stab at what's the ideal profile of a online or a Tacoma Flex learner, and for lots of hours and lots of really engaging conversations, we landed in a place where it was kind of this sad yet exciting aha moment of, like, we cannot lean into personalization for each whole learner, while simultaneously saying that we can actually craft a profile that would tell you that you're the fit for Tacoma Flex or you're the fit for Tacoma Online. And so what was exciting about that revelation is that it let us really double down and lean into the personalized piece, which we've been doing all along. But that's where the richness comes in terms of truly learning every single different scenario or circumstance that brings a student to our program. And then reflection. And this travels through the entire Tacoma Flex program in terms of whether it's staff, whether it's student, and soliciting and collecting that student voice. It's been a powerful driver in terms of what courses we are slating to expand to offer, and ultimately even shifting programming practices within that. These are just a snapshot of our current offerings, and it's pretty exciting because I would say in year 3 it's pretty expansive, and if you spend time, and I won't go through line by line, I promise, but it's exciting for us to be able to communicate to our students and the world that we do offer AP courses, and we do offer some of those traditionally difficult to offer AP courses because as a large part of my career as a high school administrator and teacher, there were often times where we couldn't offer a section because we didn't have enough students interested in that section. And so what we've been able to do in terms of Tacoma Flex via Tacoma Online is pool individuals from across the district that wanted access to this course to break down some of those traditional barriers that are very real and do exist. Simultaneously, there are courses. American Sign Language is always a pride point for us. We've never been offered to offer a year 3 in ASL until Tacoma Online and Tacoma Flex. We have ASL in every single one of our brick and mortars. It's an extremely popular course. And so it's been exciting to expand access to not just students who opt for Tacoma Flex or Tacoma Online, but ultimately the entire district. And I'll just, you guys have reviewed this, but those are our other offerings. Because I can't not mention it, I'll also mention CTE.
I knew it was coming.
Our convening this over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, is around the development of new pathways. We're getting very, very intentional in terms of designing very fluid, continuous access points for all of our learners. And simultaneously combating and being strategic in terms of how do we get them access earlier. Tacoma Online and Tacoma Flex will function, and I often use them both because they're synonyms, they're powered by, right? But in terms of Tacoma Flex, it will offer courses that fit into these pathways that previously we didn't have an opportunity to offer. And so that also gets very exciting for me, in that we have some courses up there that traditionally we couldn't offer at every school, and now students, if they have a passion in that career pathway, have access. By the numbers, so fall of 2022, it was day 1, year 1 for Tacoma Flex. 89 high school students, 138 courses, 5 middle school students, and like I said, we were just doing a high school pilot, but we weren't going to turn a scenario. Our Tacoma Online's administrative colleagues at the brick and mortars have been really good in terms of increasing communication and saying, hey, what could we do for this learner? And it's been fun to watch that growth, even though we weren't intentionally serving middle school. So for a total of semester 1 last fall, 94 students, 149 courses. And so that's a fun point to add too. So a student doesn't have to take 2 classes. Some of them may take 1 class, and it's okay. It's actually applauded because it's what they need, and that's the win for us. Semester 2, you'll see a pretty substantial increase in that we went we went to 297 high school students and 419 courses. Middle school, once again, we were not serving middle school, but jumped to 9 students and 19 courses. And some of that was a pilot that Sean had crafted just to see what it would look like. So for a total of 306 students, 438 courses. It's a 233% student enrollment increase. And it was 289 more courses second semester over first. Pass rate was at 77%. And I want to mention something about the pass rate. We do a lot of mining to not only look at our Tacoma Flex students and our Tacoma Online students, but we do a ton of comparative analysis across the entire district. And I think that numbers are absolutely critical in terms of one metric of success, but want to make sure that we're not leaving out the story that brought some of those students to us. So there are scenarios where a student, specifically in Flex, may have been failing multiple courses in the brick and mortar and found success in Flex, and vice versa. And so it's that counseling and that connection piece of us being able to work with students. And so, yeah.
I appreciate that. And I just want to pin this. I'll remind us a couple of things. These are classes that are taught by TPS instructors. They are highly skilled. And so sometimes I hear, and I wouldn't describe this as unique to Flex or anything, but I hear the term quality. There's a recognition that with all of our work is what makes it so complex is it doesn't work every time, every way for every kid. And so what we're trying to do is create opportunities in there to say here, but these teachers are highly skilled at doing this. There's other mechanisms here that sometimes are problematic for an individual. You don't see your teacher per se every day. And so you may shoot off an email at 10 o'clock looking for that instant response. Our teachers are not there at 10 o'clock. And nor are we asking them to. Some are doing a bang up job, and they also are living in real time. And so it does sometimes take a flow piece. As Adam described the analytics, sometimes in those stories we hear is, well, little Joshy, he was trying really hard. If I'm not engaged to move my mouse, it's called idle. And so we can see that in that story behind there. And so we're trying to build those connections. And so I think what's the picture of Santos there is an important one. I just went and saw Santos a few weeks ago. He invited me to come to Silas, where he is at the brick and mortar. And I asked him, what's a good time for you? He goes, I'm in Flex. So come on out in the morning. I'll meet you there. And so we had a conversation around some global things. I got a chance to learn a lot from Santos. But we're going to keep on reminding folks is we are not asking that we create another one size fits all. We're asking that we create a systematic approach for families to have choice and trying to personalize and have another opportunity to personalize that for each child. Fair? All right. Thanks, Adam.
I'd add one more thing before we turn this one, and it's something we looked at that I just omitted from the slide by accident. And it comes with us not jumping to any conclusions, and we're mining the why behind it. But basically, over the course of now 3 semesters, 64% of all Flex enrollments are AM enrollments. So approximately 2/3 are selecting Flex courses in the morning. Our immediate instincts, or some of our hypotheses, are around sleep. With the 7th grader at home, like I could use Flex. We're not in the district, but yes, maybe eventually. So anyway, that's our hypothesis, but those are the numbers. So it's roughly 2/3.
And we've also heard other things in that personal. Sometimes it helps when they have younger siblings, getting them off to the bus in there. And so with each story, there's a hypothesis, and that data is to give you some trends. And the trend is 2/3 of all Flex classes are offering in the AM piece.
100%. And part of the iFlex campaign will start to unpack some of those stories, because they will make you smile and break your heart all at the same time. In terms of, we have students that work at night to support the means of their entire family existence, and utilize that morning opportunity, because they get better shifts at night, use that morning opportunity to be more alert when they go to school. Thousands and thousands of stories.
So Adam, you've a couple of times said iFlex versus Flex. I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to explain that.
Sorry, yeah. This iFlex is this campaign that really personalized down to a student. So it's in my brain because we've been developing and receiving student stories as to why do you take Flex classes, and so yeah, it's not me personally flexing, but there's some power as these individual students flow in to say like iFlex, and it's I'm glad you mentioned Santos because he'll be more than excited with the shout out, even though I have a typo on his school.
Yes.
And if you zoomed in or if you took the
Hence,
opportunity,
Silas.
I didn't give him the shirt. Like we didn't like create that scenario. It is absolutely Santos. He doesn't like mornings, or he's not a morning person. Anyway, yeah.
So the iFlex is the formalized, it's a campaign where students are able to activate their voice and tell their story to iFlex, meaning my voice.
Like
And this is
literally.
my choice.
What?
This is working for me. Yes. So if you'd like to take a picture and get in as the modeling campaign as board members to say you can flex too, we can enroll you in a class and then you can wear that badge.
We have some teacher.
Careful.
we
We
have
might
some
take you
teacher
up on
ones.
There's some classes that
You'll
actually
get trading cards. You'll get trading cards soon. So that brings us to right now in terms of this fall. 9th through 12th grade, middle school expansion. I had noted that there are a couple of middle schools with larger numbers. Those are actually controlled pilots that we'll be excited to continuously assess. And the team, if you have questions about it, can kind of unpack where we're at with some of those. This collaboration communication is huge. The collaboration side is multifaceted in terms of families and students, but also our internal partners at the brick and mortars. And that's the beauty with Flex is that it's 1 foot in, 1 foot here, and really personalized to each kid's experience and what they need.
So in that communication, the communications team has spots on every website so that families have access to the information. It's not just, there's a strategy and timelines where we are pushing out information not only through the website, but through formal communications channels. So the district sends out a communication, the building sends out a communication. And I want to thank Tanisha for helping us really coordinate and scheduling those things. We don't know always, and we don't have enough resources to say, Director Keating, what's the best way to communicate with you? Or Director Strozier, what's the best way? And so we do rely on some pieces there. And as you see, and maybe it's the next slide that will be helpful, you'll see that, word of mouth gets out there. Word of mouth gets out there and it starts to expand in that space as well. So, sometimes folks will help us and say, well, I didn't know. And I think that's real. And so that's okay. So what can we share with you? But it is on every website. It is on the district's website, right on the front page, so you can learn more. And then if you want to learn more, please also engage us in that communication. And so we will continue that cadence. It's not a one and done episodic event. And if you know folks that want to learn more, let us know and you can reach out to them too.
Yeah, and we've been working really hard and strategic in terms of even like course enrollment for the spring, being more integrated in that process, even road shows to get to once again try different mediums to help people at least be able to make an empowered, informed decision. Oh, sorry, last bullet there, continuous enrollment. So last year we had done some deadlines, and what we found was there are students that can successfully come into our programming even 6-7 weeks into a semester and have an opportunity that they potentially may have already burned in a brick and mortar scenario. And so we didn't want to limit access because it takes away from this personalization. So if we have a parent that reaches out, or even an administrator or counselor that reaches out, which they do daily, and we're able to have a shared conversation around that and we're all on the same page, we want to give a kid a shot at success, no matter what the time is, with realistic expectations. We're not looking to set kids up for failure. Kid comes to us 2 weeks before the semester ends and says, hey, I want to take a class because I'm failing this one. We're going to counsel to the second semester. But there's so many differentiated opportunities that we had to remove that arbitrary barrier in terms of what we were communicating because it's a false barrier. It's an imposter barrier that we had to eliminate. This is just a comparative across the 3 semesters because sometimes it's easier to look at in terms of grand totals.
So you see a steady increase. First semester, especially when you're working with high school students, oftentimes it's a reset, right? You come in and you might try it again in that space. And so we oftentimes see an uptick in the second semester of activities. I think a few of us are recovering high school principals, and I don't think that's unique into that space. And so I anticipate, when we think, and this poses a little bit of a challenge even as we try to staff. the fluidity of how do we support kids in real time versus, well, you can't do this to that space. And so we are working holistically as a system to say, well, how do we create opportunities for support inside maybe a brick and mortar, at the same time with TOL and identifying key staff members that can help in both spaces, to allow for that. We anticipate, I just cut to the chase, is we anticipate that there will be continued growth in that. We do not have an arbitrary number to say that the district should have X number of kids in there. We want to try to meet kids where they are and their families where they are. But I do anticipate that they will see continued growth over the course of years. But we don't have and I'd ask that we don't create an arbitrary, the district should get X number of kids in this, because I think then it takes away from the opportunity for the family to make that choice in that space. Of course, by policy, you could do that. You could say every student thou shalt create and put that in there. You would have an opportunity to hear from the public. You'd have an opportunity to hear from others. Our recommendation is that you allow it to be flexible for families.
Hence the name.
It's like in the name. Yeah.
I'm trying to lean onto it.
We're gonna bookend that, right, Director McElroy?
Yeah.
You guys did.
I only included these, and this is the holistic snapshot for all the high schools, in that, one, to illustrate that there are differences by school, and it leads our mapping and our conversations and our unpack of the why behind it, right? And so, is it marketing? Because it's easy to jump to, oh, well, they're just not hearing about it. But we want to be definitive in that. And so while we can be better, and we know that in terms of a communication and a marketing component across all schools and across district communication lines and things like that, there's also granular pieces that we're already engaging in, just to surface some of those whys, so that if we need to shift the program, and we can, or if we surface barriers, which we have, then we can start to eliminate some of those. So it's more for context as we continue to get to update the board and the public around students being served. It gives this holistic progression.
I want to pause us and look at the middle of the chart. If you could look at your screen in the middle of the chart, right between Oakland and Sammy.
Raymond Hall.
Raymond Hall is an intentional effort that we have been working on that has taken, and I had a very vulnerable moment this morning to know, and I'm just grateful that, for those that don't know what Raymond Hall is one of our schools that serves incarcerated youth. We have not been able to do the job that we need to do to serve the youth that have made some really horrific decisions, and they're going to continue to be held accountable for that. We can educate them while we're in there. We can make it different in that space. So in partnership with Raymond Hall staff, Renee, Adam, Sean, Ruth, Paul, HR, business and finance, we were able to make a very monumental breakthrough this year. And you see that one student has already been able to start to access flex-like environments where there is an opportunity to meet that student where they are, and say you can still pursue your education. It is a civil rights issue for you. And that moment today, that was a good day and a good moment. So I'm extremely grateful for all those people that are in there. We won't stop. That's not what we do. But there is a moment here that we should recognize that is pretty significant. Where that, I believe, young man, Paul, is it physics?
We finished physics on Tuesday
Wow.
Physics
with an A.
with an A,
Huge.
with a TPS certified instructor. Physics.
There's an email in my box for another one.
And we're just getting started.
I love that. Awesome.
And I would just say, like, for me, superintendent and I toured Raymond Hall last fall of 2022, and met, and along with Principal Fromberg, and having seen and talked to the kids and spent time with these young people who are there, this is, for me, having such a personal experience being there, I am also getting emotional over.
You might have been a spark to this conversation, Director Keating, in that day, so that you can start to talk about those journeys and how we, every student, every day may not look the same. It may not feel the same in there, but we have that responsibility. And so I just want to also leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you to each of you. I know that I can only imagine what that student is feeling in the sense of he might have had a good moment. Cool. I apologize, Adam. I'm going to try to stop talking because we're going to run out of time. But
You're good.
You're doing a
We're
great
almost
job.
there. Middle school, once again, snapshot. We just started officially serving middle school students this semester. You'll notice Gray as 18 and Meeker's at 26, and those are controlled pilots. Trying some different things in terms of what does supervision look like? What does it look like to have their Tacoma teacher on the other side of that flex course with some navigation support of the carrying human in person during that slot. And so more to come in terms of those updates as we continue to expand. And then I think I have literally covered every single one of these because I can't help myself. And so I would just emphasize, and the TOL Tacoma Flex crew, this is our mantra, right? It's yes and. We're not even. I love the Raymond Hall piece, and it's part of this collection of where we're going. We don't stop. We can't stop, and so yeah, more to come, and we'll be excited to continue to unpack and share, celebrate different advancements and expansions. With that, yeah, appreciate the time and love questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. And I know you have a team here with you, and I'd like to open up the mic to see if any of you have any thoughts or questions, things that stand out for you, challenges or significant victories like the superintendent shared today about the student at Raymond Hall. Anything that you want to add to before we get to questions?
I definitely have to add one. Can you go back one on that slide?
Yeah.
The students in the bottom left there.
Oh, thank you.
Back in the spring, the teacher at one of the high cap programs at Jefferson Elementary, who's a rock star teacher, reached out to Ruth, and Ruth connected it to me. And as we were just beginning to launch what middle school flex looked like, we had fifth graders in the discussion at elementary. They had basically kind of topped out on the math. There's a fifth grader taking ninth grade algebra right now. And so we were able to put together a package in partnership with her that she would support these students in the classroom, but that our teachers would lead these classes. And so now we currently have 4 fifth graders taking middle school flex classes that range all throughout math up until algebra. So that was a solution that, no one had figured out yet, how we could make this work.
And give them credit.
Oh yeah, that kid's getting a high school credit,
Yeah.
that fifth grader.
that's how we do it. That's how they do it, right? Those kids do it in that space. I'd also give a big shout out to, Ruth is at the table here, and we've been talking, but we run an elementary program for our TOL kids. We had a fun moment this morning. I was talking about transportation and TOL uses transportation field trips in that space. And so Ruth reminded me again of, we have grade level field trips. TOL kids get grade level field trips, right? Sean has assured me that the second floor will be programmed out as a Tacoma Flex hub. Right. So you have these moments where kids are coming into both at TOL and then opportunities even through Flex where I might have to do a lab experiment. I can't do that at home. And so it's not as simple as it's all over here on your own online. It is a very interactive approach into that. And so as you're thinking about this programming, if you're at home and saying, engage us in a conversation because we want to help your kids flex. How'd I do, Ruth?
Great.
Thank you. I see all the smiles. Ruth went back and told the team, I whooped them up today.
No, I think it's important to know that Tacoma Online is not just kids on the other side of a computer. It is a very dynamic community. Just today, We were at the FIC having a park meetup for all of our.
What's the FIC?
The Family Investment Center at the Salishan property, having a park meetup with any K-8 students and their families who wanted to come. And so we had about 25 kids and their families just playing. We serve a lot of families that live in that neighborhood. And so we intentionally go out into the community, around the community, because our kids live all over Tacoma and beyond. And so we provide that opportunity for students to feel connected and for students to feel like they are part of a bigger community, down to earning tags that they wear on their lanyards, to buttons for coming to different events, and having student rewards assemblies and recognition. And it can sometimes sound sterile that your student is doing online learning, K5, K6, what does that look like? But it is a lot more dynamic and connected than one might think.
And that's a huge shout out to Ruth and the team of teachers there that make it dynamic, because it would be very easy for people to rest and there and there. So the other steps that we are talking about making sure that there's flex hubs throughout the regions in the town. What do those look like? We'll define them based on student needs and those opportunities. And so if you want to see some of that live in action, you can go down to 9th and Broadway. There's a schedule. You'll sit in there. Sean can help tour you and see what that looks like.
I have a question. So thinking about, like, as throughout this presentation, I've thought about year zero. I'll get the lingo. Year zero, and then just like where we all were, right, in that moment of like, oh, so we're going to do this. We're going to stand up this online K-12 school at the early parts of pandemic. And then thinking about the ways that online learning happened for students across the district. And some of that was positive. Some of that was definitely not positive. It was isolating. It was like, there were so many psychological. I know, like, our family tried TOL in the very beginning and it was not a good fit. Right, for lots of reasons, right? But it was an option that we had, which I will always value. And I'm curious from the team's perspective, how students who are now selecting into Flex and also TOL, like, do you see a trend where the experiences that were happening or were had in the early parts of online learning to where they are now, like where the attitude, because before it was like you were thrusted into this environment, where now it is this like far more developed, robust, diverse, academically diverse programming. So I'm just curious about, because I know that there was a decline when students had the choice to come back. There was a lot of students that were like, oh, thank God. I get to go back and see people, right, and be with people. So I'm just curious if you've seen, or if there's any, like, and it would be anecdotal, I'm sure, but just curious if there's a shift in the students and just that difference between having to be online versus being able to choose that.
Yeah, have to versus get to, because we have the other side of it too. That's pretty overwhelmingly exciting, is when a student says, I've finally found success and I don't have to go back to a brick and mortar scenario that wasn't a fit for me. And I think stabilization over the last, I'd say 2 years really, has been exciting in that there's not this mass drop. We've stabilized. It's about 1,000 kids. We graduate kids, and I think that's been the exciting piece for me. And I'll let these guys jump in, but I'll offer one other piece, and I think I've got to watch it firsthand, and then I get to watch it from a different level and watch these guys collaboratively work with our talented staff. The level of customization that now exists versus 3 years ago is almost immeasurable. And honestly, other than like this impassioned, like, collaborative rally of everyone involved, I don't know how anyone could have got to where they currently are. So a massive shout out to the Tacoma Online teaching staff, because they are in, and they are all in, and it's so. And I've looked at online programs for 2 decades. I've overseen them in different scenarios, and I've never seen a more passionately engaged group of educators, Tacoma educators serving Tacoma kids. And so I think it'll be fun, and we've talked a little bit about this, but what would it look like to create a tour scenario, a virtual tour scenario of a parent or a student getting to travel through what it really looks like? Because I think it would blow some people away in terms of the level of engagement, in terms of level of care. Yeah, you're gonna get me like passionate.
I'd add that some of those folks that, oh, thank God, I can go back to the building, came right back.
Interesting.
So that timeline, just for memory, is March 13th, 2019, order to get out of schools.
2020.
Exactly. Right, 2020.
PTSD.
He's put it in
Right?
Yeah.
2019
Don't make it longer than it was.
2020
Oh,
school
it
year,
was
right?
2019, 20.
Yeah, but you're right, 2020, right? In June, we made a decision that because of what we were facing, that we would create a online option. That the online experience for families in that other time was not what TOL was, just in that space. And then these folks, propped up a school for 5,000 kids from June to September.
Including getting the hardware, and the
Curriculum,
software.
all those things in that. And so I think that the experiences that families had were real, and they were diverse in that space. And the lessons learned is it wasn't for everybody, and it wasn't not for everybody. Well, it wasn't for everybody. I think it's safe to say that in there. I would say that if you hear one thing is that, and you saw that through the timeline so that's 2021, that 21, 22, we start to calibrate and really catching our breaths in that space. It's not the same as it was in that. And that's what's exciting about bringing you here into that. You can see that not only TOL has calibrated, but now you're starting to see what kids are saying. I like a little bit of this. It works for me. It works for me. And what does work for me? I have choice. I am successful in this. And no, we haven't done a breakdown of, well, you are failing X number of classes, and that's not what it's really about. It's about never giving up in that. And so even if they were unsuccessful, it doesn't mean that, well, it didn't work. No, it didn't work yet, whatever it is. So we might have to go back to, because your life experience says go back into brick and mortar for that period or not. And so, that's my random way of saying TOL is not the same as it was during the pandemic. Online learning is not the same. We learned a lot of lessons. We've adapted, we've changed, we've evolved. And we're seeing that once again, for a portion of our population, this is a very important tool. Forced choice is not the option for us. And we're seeing that even with some of our neighborhood schools sometimes, where it is a choice. And that we see families choose out of that because they want a different choice, maybe a different brick and mortar in that. And so that choice option is where we want to continue to live in.
So Sean, I don't know if you had, before we get to questions, if you had any thoughts or inputs that from your perspective.
Yeah, I think through the stabilization that Adam was talking about, one of the things that I've noticed with staff, but also with students, is just capacity growth. So our students, and I heard it from a second grade teacher in an elementary meeting, who was just congratulating the team on on the skill set that students had developed over the course of a year. And but not only technical, but time management and scheduling and some of the executive functions that we hope to see, and goal setting and reflection. So just learning to learn in our environment through that stabilization with kids has been tremendous, and I think we're seeing outcomes from that. I think our teachers, our PACE coaches and teachers, have just gotten really good at coaching for that too. I think they're seeing their role a little differently than maybe a traditional teacher role, and taking on that identity. It's just having a big impact on kids holistically.
Thank you. That's actually really insightful. Anyone up here? Questions for the team from the presentation, or things that you've been noodling or wondering? Anybody? Corey?
I would say, I just find it, for me, my life story. I was working 2 jobs in high school. So I remember I had a paper out. I was up at like 3 a.m. I still had class at 7 a.m. Immediately getting out of school, catching 2 buses to get to work after school. I was just exhausted all the time throughout high school. And had this been an option, I know my mom would have opted me into this because she would have said, I had to work to pay to help in my family, but then also I had to sleep. So after I'd get off work at like 10 p.m., you're going to bed, but you're up again at 3. So, and that was like every day. And so I can only imagine like some of those students and some that I've talked to myself that have those night shifts, they love this option. And they're also saying, but I need to be around people. So they're like, okay, I'm sleeping a little bit, still get all their work done, and still get to have that interaction at their brick and mortars. The 2 students I talked to at Mount Tacoma last year. So, but honestly, I really support it. I think it's a really awesome option. I think that allowing folks to choose in though, it's really showing like what they need. If it was more of like just rolled out, everybody's got to do this thing, would they really select the classes that they need? Or would they just say, oh, well, I have to do this. I'll select whatever instead of things they're deeply passionate about. And honestly, the physics story, that really touches my heart. Like, that's amazing. It's physics.
Not, I think it's safe to say that we are older than our students. And so we have a generational bias, many of us, that, sometimes online early on was, well, it's remedial. That's not what online learning is. Professionally across the universe, it's not that way. You can earn a doctorate degree online from accredited universities. And so we're in the middle of a change of society. The beauty of Flex is it's not just the block of time. It's also a student voice to say, I want to take this class because I don't want to take per se art there. Or maybe I do want to take art there. But that voice in the course selection is so powerful to know that how I learn best and which one is it going to make up in that opportunity. And so now what you have, and unless you tell us formal action, you have students that have a choice between a complete online option,
Which is TOL.
TOL,
Okay.
where they can earn a high school diploma, an accredited high school diploma, which you've been to their graduations, many of you, and you can see how meaningful that is. World champion boxers, you name it. These are students that are not struggling academically, that need a different option. And now you have, and have had as a whole portfolio of amazing brick and mortar schools that are being very successful with a lot of students. And what you've created is now you have students that say, I want a little bit of both. And if you're allowing us, I think we continue to get better at those 3 options for a while. And I think you've seen from the team is they're committed to continue to grind to be better for kids. And then we will have more and more positive results.
Well, I want to thank all of you and the whole team, all the teachers and everyone behind this, because I've learned a lot tonight about, I kind of was still stuck in the TOL struggle from a couple of years ago, and we've had Friday reports and other updates. They didn't make as much sense to me in terms of the evolution as hearing you talk about it tonight. And so thank you. This has actually been really helpful, and I am super proud of what we've developed as a group. And obviously these kids are finding their path and finding their passion, and I just think it's pretty impressive that we're offering this many options for families, and I'm sure more families, as they learn about it, might want to do this or offer this to their children. But again, the brick and mortar is a wonderful way for most kids, a lot of kids, and online is a wonderful way for other kids. So the fact that we actually have this interwoven extra piece is like the sweet spot. And I also want to commend and congratulate the team for going through the accreditation, which I know we haven't accomplished yet, but at least getting the notice that we can and have received the OSPI blessing to be able to go and be statewide, because that is pretty amazing. We can help other students. So thank you to everyone.
I have one technical question. I don't mean to put you guys on the spot. Is it possible for a homeschool student to say, I'd like to go take a class in this environment?
Did it this week.
So if you do know somebody that is also in our community or maybe another community that needs another option, we're here to help them meet them where they are.
Awesome. Just never ends. This is so exciting.
This work studies.
I know, it's great. Yeah, it's work study has to end. So, Adam, I'm going to throw it back to you unless anyone else has anything else to add. I'm going to throw it back to you for a closing inspirational comment, which you're so good at. I'm waiting. I just, Adam, it's you. I know you're exhausted, but still.
Well, I'll ping pong it back because I think that as someone who lives, as a team that lives in this innovative space of the future of everything, right? We're constantly looking at what's next and what can we deliver to Tacoma kids. This is it's absolutely sincere and genuine as I can be, and it goes beyond thanking the board and the superintendent and the cabinet. It goes to thanking our community because they have been extremely powerful in our evolution and continue to be partners in that role through good times and bad. We get plenty of conversations around helping us be better, or helping unpack, like we did tonight, this mutual platform to collectively be better. So with that, we appreciate the support. There are a lot of districts that are not as courageous in terms of serving each student and each family, and it's evident by capping online school numbers or closing online school numbers. And so the courageous betting on us to serve kids with more innovative opportunities is something that's inspiring to us. So there's your closing
We
statement.
look forward to continued updates from you guys periodically in Friday reports, and just the good news every time you share something like the superintendent shared today about our Raymond Hall student, just it reiterates why we're here and why we do this work and why we explore and push the envelope. And so with that, I think thank you all for coming this evening, and we are now officially adjourned.